Good morning. It's a rainy Monday here in Pittsburgh, and I've been I've been looking forward to this week, these videos for a while, because what I'm going to do this week is lay out some of the core principles of practice that kind of inspire me. They represent my aspirations, sort of a navigational beacon for everything I do, whether it's this channel or the work that I talk about in my music or my meditation. Earlier in the year, I read Emerson. Go back and check out those videos. But one of the things I was inspired to do by Emerson was to think about my principles. Emerson is excellent at aphorisms, right? He's excellent at coming up with a statement that sort of smacks you in the face and then resonates for hours or days and years afterwards. In fact, most of his essays feel like that, like one after the other, just these pithy statements. And I'd left thinking, could I do that for my own work? And I do. I have 4 principles, and I'm going to take one a day, starting today with the first principle of practice, which is the importance of understanding the self, recognizing the mystery, and exploring the intersection between the two. So that may sound like 3 principles, but it's really one, right? It's that intersection. To start with, okay, so let me then take this and say, okay, we have the self, we have the mystery, and the intersection. So in terms of practice, in terms of principles, exploring the nature of self is the driving force of my meditation practice, right? To be able to sit with equanimity, non-distracted, and then apply that attention to the sensations and the phenomena that appear to be my personality, myself. When scrutinized, that's that sense of a permanent, concretized, the word that's used in the practice is reified, the reification of the self. All of that evaporates, and what's left is not nothing, but actually everything. What's left is the mystery. Now, I myself do visualize a mystery that is separate from myself. That's probably a sign of where I am in my practice. I think of the mystery of the universe and all of the questions about where it all comes from, and is there a teleology that we can ride in along with, right? Is there something to get, something to understand, that mysterious sense that the cosmos is fundamentally aware. The other part of the practice, then, the more sort of creative side of what we do as humans, is to explore that intersection. So art, by which I mean the aesthetic experience, whether it's music or poetry or drama, I mean, name all of the arts. And I use that term very broadly. I think last week I talked about how human machines can be seen as artistic when viewed from a certain perspective. And what is that perspective? Well, that perspective is mysterious. It is to connect into an understanding of the self that is not just foundationally non-distracted, but is also a recognition of that that broader. Okay, so the words get difficult, and that's why we explore the intersection. So this is the first principle, which is to understand the nature of self, to recognize the mystery, and to explore the intersection between the two. There's an interesting conversation that was just released on the Waking Up app, which is Sam Harris, and I use that app a lot. It's been very influential in my experiences of the practice, and he's actually talking in this conversation. He's actually talking with his wife, who has come out with a new documentary on consciousness. And the question that she frames in her book is consciousness foundational? Is consciousness foundational? Well, what does that mean? Well, I guess having listened to the interview but not having read the book yet, and not being totally clued into that field of study, my summary would be that we have a tendency to think that consciousness emerges like when there's a system of sufficient complexity, like the human brain or like ChatGPT on my phone. We think that consciousness will emerge from the constituent parts, and that there's a difficult problem associated with consciousness in that you cannot analyze it externally. So consciousness, the hard problem of consciousness is what they refer to. And again, I don't have all the background on, but that term means something specific in the study of consciousness. The hard problem is that while I know what it is to be me, and you know what it is to be you, and a bat knows what it is to be a bat, I don't know what it is to be you, and I never will. So, what if we start with the supposition that consciousness is foundational? So, three things really. First is it's a wonderful conversation, and I'm going to go buy the book, and I'm going to study it hard and listen and come back with more. But so that's the first thing. The second thing is the question of what does it feel like to be a bat. I think it references an article that's sort of seminal and important in the field, and I don't remember the name of the person who wrote it, but the idea that there is a way to be a thing is one definition of consciousness. It feels a certain way to be a thing. As a tangent, when I was in school in England, which was when I was a young boy, we'd not yet moved to the States, and if you were naughty in class, you were instructed to write lines. I don't know if that's something that they did in American schools, but they would give you a line that you had to write out 100 times, and then when you were done with that, your punishment was over. But one of the lines that one of the teachers would give was the question, what is it like to be the inside of a ping pong ball? Now, I don't think they were approaching this with the compassion of a Zen teacher. They were just trying to be funny. But what is it like to... Maybe there is nothing associated with what it is to be inside a ping pong ball. What if there is? What if there is something to be like it is to be the liver. So something that Sam and Annika, his wife, talk about in the conversation. Well, maybe there is, because maybe consciousness is foundational. Maybe there isn't memory associated with that. So look, these are the kinds of questions that you can explore in the intersection. And this first principle highlights that the driving aspiration of and the other principles is to support this question. Because at the end of it, this is the goal of practice, is to understand the self, to recognize the mystery, and to explore the intersection between the two. And the tools we have at our disposal for that are many and varied and ancient in many ways. The teachings of the Buddha, the teachings of any spiritual practice that involves the sensations and experiences of contemplation. But I would also argue that the symphonies of Gustav Mahler are emergent from that, or foundational in that intersection. And one of the ways of looking at practice and aesthetics is to, having identified that intersection, to broaden it, so that the overlap between the experience of the nature of self and the experience of the mystery becomes co-mingled, co-arising, co-terminal. I'll say all of those. Right? So that instead of being an apperception that cannot be properly articulated, the intersection between the two becomes something that can be recognized, even if just for a moment. But then it can be extended in duration, so that intersection is more stable. And then it can broaden out, so that not just when I'm listening to a particular piece of music or doing particular meditation practice for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, or whatever. But then, in fact, yes, when I take my dogs for a walk, or I dial into my work and do all that stuff. So that's the first principle. Dial in shows how old I am, right? With a modem. We don't use those anymore, do we? Do they still call them modems? I don't even know what they are. Perhaps we're just so interpenetrated with the internet now that we don't even need connection points. So I think that's good. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday for the other three practice principles. Thursday, as always, is the meditation Q&A. So if you have questions on meditation, drop me a note in this video and I will include it. And other than that, as always, keep your wits about you.